Yes, let's get
All
started.
right, let's get started. All right. Okay, so we're Alt Script.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Our first episode.
Hey. So I'm JK.
My name is Riya, and this is a podcast of two second-gen Korean creatives who left our dream jobs to live life on our own terms.
And in this first episode, we're going to start with a bit of an introduction about ourselves. And we're going to share a little bit about how we came to do this podcast and the careers that we left behind.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. First of all, we're cousins.
Yeah, we're
If
cousins.
you couldn't tell, we look alike a little bit.
A little bit. I think the nose probably.
Yeah. But you know, as you might have picked up, we have different accents. We come from different places. I was born in Australia, grew up in New Zealand, currently live in Seoul, South Korea. But we're filming this here in the OC in Southern California.
Yep, where I was born and raised. Yep. Yeah, so it's really nice to have you drawn here. I mean, yeah, you traveled yesterday, so you are dealing with jet lag right now.
Yes.
As we speak.
A little tired.
Yeah, but you're pushing through.
Yeah, and we're going to keep the energy up and going.
Yeah, we'll try.
We'll try.
But yeah, so like he mentioned, we're cousins. I think a really good context here is you are the second oldest cousin, right? And I am the youngest. So there is a bit of an age gap there, but despite that, I feel like our relationship really grew into friendship, I would say, like around like 5-6 years ago, when Alex and I were living out in London and you came out to visit, right? And I think that was like the first time we really hung out like that. Because I think before you'd always hang out with my sister, you know, and I'd be the quiet little cousin in the background. But yeah, I would say like that was probably like the moment that really, I would say, blossomed more of a friendship. And then in recent years, I would say maybe 2 or 3 years ago when Alex and I visited you in Korea, that's when we really bonded.
Yeah. And, you know, getting into, you know, the deeper sort of conversations and obviously also the overlap in careers as well, the creative careers. That also helped in you know, with the sorts of conversations we were having. And I think since then, I think, you know, we've been walking sort of similar paths in terms of our creative careers, in that we, you know, have been sort of taking different twists and turns and pursuing things that have, you know, I guess been a bit more meaningful in terms of purpose as well.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, especially the inception of this particular podcast, like happened literally maybe 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
Or at least the talks that started it. Because when you were last here, I was at that moment really going through burnout. And I was going through like the deeper questions of like, what am I doing? And yeah, I think we both were in a life position where we're asking the bigger questions and like trying to figure out like, what is it that we're doing? And we're like, maybe we just need to just start talking about it. And I think not to have any shame or guilt or even feel pressure to like have it all figured out right now as well. Because I feel like I was like sharing this with you yesterday where right when the burnout was happening and I was trying to think about like what's next, like I kept getting content about like, you know, I left my like 6-figure job and then I built this business in 30 days since, you know, like seeing a lot of that type of content like was really anxiety inducing. And so I think with this, what we're trying to do is just kind of like invite people into like the current process that's happening right now. And it's like really messy, not pretty, but yeah, just invite people into that like transparent, vulnerable season that we're in currently.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't gotten it figured out.
No, by no means.
By no means. Yeah. So we're both trying to sort of, you know, go on this journey, trying to sort of understand what it is that we really want in terms of work, but also not just work, just life in general. And we wanted to share this process in their hopes that maybe there are people out there who are going on sort of similar journeys, or maybe you can take something from this. And for us also, like in the process of sharing with one another, get a better understanding and a bit more clarity as to what we want as well.
Yes. Yeah. And so this podcast is like pretty much part processing live, but also like I feel like there were like very specific questions that we were contemplating and even pondering on, right? That we are going to cover. And I would say in this first season of like, why did we leave? I think that's like a good, or not even like a good place to start. I think a good place to start for this first episode really is like, what was the thing that made us decide to leave? And then in the next episodes, we'll kind of like unpack that a bit more, like go a little bit deeper, peel the onion skin a bit more of like, okay, why did that happen? You know, just kind of go through that journey episode by episode.
Yeah. It might get really deep and dark and bits and but I guess that's the whole point. So speaking of which, do you want to start us off by sharing a little bit about what sort of work you did?
Yeah, for sure. So up until recently, I was a creative director at an agency, and while as a creative director, I was also the head of the video department. And so it was like very upper level management. And that agency was, I would say like startup small business stage. So like it was still very like scrappy, you know, everyone's wearing a ton of hats, a lot of things going on. Very much so like you're building the plane as you're flying it. Type of environment. So yeah, I was doing that. I was there for 3 years. I was honestly making really good money. I would say for like my age, and me and Alex were living really comfortably. You know, we're married, but we have no kids. So like that type of income was like very cushy, very, you know, comfortable. But also at the same time, it's not like we're like super balling either. Like, because I would say in that industry, the highest that you'll get, quote unquote, in like title, whatever, is like, creative director, or you own your own agency. And obviously if you own your own agency, the amount that you can make is limitless. But as a creative director, like I was making that upper level amount. And that's what I was doing up until a couple months ago.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
And before that, you were at a few other companies and...
Yes.
You know, some larger companies as well. And, you know, you had a lot of responsibility there too.
I was at like a tech company, social tech company before that. I would say I wasn't as high up as like I was at my previous place, like definitely just like a senior designer while I was there. But yeah, this last spot that I was at was like, okay, I've like reached like the peak. Not that I could have gone more. I could have like, you know, achieved even more and like become one of those like, I don't know, try to make my name and my brand, you know, bigger, but and we'll get into it more later.
Yeah.
But what about you? I feel like, we come from very different backgrounds in terms of career.
Yeah, most definitely. So unlike Riya, my background was actually in the legal world. And I started off, graduating from law school and getting into litigation. And so I started out my sort of adult career as a lawyer. And I stayed with the one firm for close to a decade. And, you know, I made partner quite young at 27. And, I am not married. And, you know, I was making quite a fair bit of money young in my 20s. So, you know, I was living that baller life. Like back then, I think, you know, The Great Gatsby, the movie had come out, and I don't know, maybe that sort of inspired my 30th birthday party.
Yeah, I heard about that from my sister.
So yeah, it was quite the party, you know. It was a bit, you know, full on, you know, not to go into too much detail, but, you know, it was definitely a red carpet affair. And, living that sort of lifestyle, you're very caught up in the prestige, the status, I guess, being able to afford anything and everything that you want, and having that sort of financial freedom at that age was also quite unique, because not that many of my peers and colleagues were living a similar lifestyle. So I was also able to, pay for things for my friends and family, and, and not just for myself. So that was great. But it comes at a cost, and everything comes at a cost, really. So, and we're going to get into that a bit more, a bit later. Yeah. So our backgrounds very different, but both of us, we come from that sort of corporate background, and we both decided to leave that life in pursuit of something different.
Yeah. And I guess like to add a bit more color to that too, like you left your law firm, I mean, how many years ago?
It's been 5 years now.
Yeah. So you've had time to really process this, and me, it's fresh. Me, it's like really fresh. So this is probably really good for me to hear from you as well. So, but yeah, that's let's get into like a little bit more of that. Okay, so like you're living this lavish lifestyle as a partner of a law firm, and then how old were you when you decided to leave?
So I was only 33 when I decided to leave. Okay, so I just gave away my age. But, when I left, it was actually I actually submitted my resignation right at the end of 2019, so just before COVID hit. So that unfortunately impacted my share sale negotiations. It obviously also meant that I wasn't able to really sort of launch the next phase of my career, because we are all locked down, and I found myself at my parents' place at home for months. So it was that transition was quite drastic, and not what I thought was going to happen.
I feel like no one could foresee COVID happening. That's for sure. Just to take like a little step back, like was there like a single moment that happened at work that made you decide like, I need to stop this, I need to get out of here?
So it wasn't a single moment that led to my decision to leave. It was a build up of a few years of intense therapy, a few years of, I guess, sort of avoiding and escaping, through like substance abuse, and through sort of, a few dark years of like depression, and, some relationship fallouts. There were a lot of different things, I guess, that happened in the lead up. And it wasn't until, going to see my therapist, I knew that my psychiatrist had a bunch of clients who were partners at law firms. So I knew that this was a common sort of issue, feeling a lot of lawyers feeling tied to their jobs and wanting to leave. But, not having the courage to actually sort of pull the trigger. But I think for me, it was coming to this realization that I could foresee what my future looked like if I stayed in law. I knew that I'd already reached somewhat of a peak in my career, and the only thing that was left was to continue to make this sort of money and continue forward in this journey, and to do it on repeat for decades. And I think the thought of that was really depressing for me because, you know, I'm a very curious person, very driven. I still had so many things that I wanted to do and achieve in life. And I wasn't quite ready to just accept the fact that this was going to be my life forever.
Yeah, you peaked too early.
Yeah, I peaked too early. I did. And, you know, I was standing at the summit going like, okay, is this it? You know, is this everything there is for me to experience? And I knew that, you know, I would regret it if I didn't leave. If I was left wondering, what if?
It's really interesting to hear because I didn't know all the details. I just knew you left.
Yeah.
I think I was like, how old? I actually wasn't that young, but when I heard it through the Vine, through my mom and then my sister. I just heard, oh, he left. I'm like, oh, okay, he left.
How about you? What made you decide to leave?
Like you said, like there's definitely a lot of layers that led up to that decision for sure. But there was like a breakdown that happened. I'll probably like share a bit about that. So, basically there was a day like I had just like finished up this really big intensive project. Like mentally I was fine because I'm like, okay, projects, clients, always crazy, always unpredictable. I've been trained to like, you know, be able to like handle this amount of stress well. So like I actually like ended that project like feeling really good mentally, but my body was like breaking down. And then like literally a couple of days after, so I'm assuming that project maybe might have like triggered the breaking that I had. So a couple of days after, I like found myself in the bathroom in the middle of the day, work day, not even a busy day. I was in the bathroom and I'm like just brushing my teeth. And then I kind of like come to and I realize like, wait, why am I brushing my teeth in the middle of the day? I've already done this before. And for me, have never had that level of like, I don't even know what you call it, like a moment of disassociation. Like I've never been in that before. So I knew instantly something was wrong. I went back to my desk and I'm like trying to focus and work. But like my mind's like, okay, I know what to do. But like my body wasn't moving. I was like, oh my gosh, something's wrong with me. And then later that night, I don't know what was happening, but all these like emotions were going on. And I'm just kind of like decompressing from work with Alex. And then I just start crying. And I'm just like, Alex, I can't do this anymore. Like, I just can't. And then, you know, and obviously it's like, it wasn't just like a flippant moment of emotions of like, oh, I'm so stressed, I'm crying, and then therefore I quit. It wasn't like that. It was definitely a build up. And I'm sure we'll get into more of that in the next episode. But yeah, that moment of like my body and my mind just felt completely disconnected. And I was like, I feel broken. Like physically, I feel broken. And so like, that was like my moment.
Yeah. So you had like this breakdown.
I literally had a day of breakdown that happened. It was just like a domino effect.
Yeah. And that was like, that's enough.
That was enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was me.
Gosh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. You saw me maybe like a week or two after that happened.
Right.
So I don't know if you noticed while you were here visiting. I was like kind of out of it.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of like a side note story thing. So a couple of days after I had that breakdown, one of my friends, a coworker, like randomly was like, Riya, I know this is really weird and random, but I had a dream that you were really stressed at work. And I just wanted to tell you, like, you should take care of yourself. And for me, that was like really assuring in the sense of like, okay, yeah, like, I'm really not in a good place. I need to do something about it. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. And you did.
Yes.
And I think that's, you know, and maybe it was that sort of one breakdown that, you know, finally led you to actually leave, you know, make that decision. But, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy to leave a high paying job, leave that security, leave a career behind like that, you know, and, you know, I guess you know, that sort of gets me wondering, like, what do you think was, you know, the thing that allowed you or gave you the courage to actually make that decision?
That's such a great question. Honestly, that night, Alex was like, Rhea, just quit. Like Alex, you know, he's my husband, by the way, context. And he's been telling me that for the past year prior, because he saw my slow decline. And he was just like, you should quit. Like, I think this is the best for you. And I'll fully support you in whatever way that looks like. So that was like the instant like relief I got of like, okay, I have someone that has my back. And that is like, I guess, a benefit of having like a husband or a partner, right? Like,
I wouldn't know.
But like, yeah, just having someone there to, help financially as well, but also just emotionally, just being that support in that moment of breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, I didn't have that, but I knew that, you know, I had some savings. I knew that, you know, with the share sale, I would be able to get some money out of it. So I don't think I was all too worried about, you know, having enough money to be able to start my next thing. It was more, I think, sort of the fear of, you know, moving on to the next thing and feeling the pressure to have to do well at the next thing that I did, to be able to show everyone that I was justified in quitting, you know, because obviously when you leave, you know, a respectable, reputable, you know, high paying job, you know, people are sort of watching to see what you do next. And whatever it is that you do, people sort of, there is this expectation that you're going to do well and you're going to succeed. And if you don't, then, you know, people are going to talk about you anyway. And so, you know, I think to a certain extent, you do sort of think about, oh, what are people going to say? And it takes a while to get over that as well, like to not care, you know, what people, you know, say and think, and because ultimately people don't truly care. Yeah. I mean, you might be gossip for like a split second, but that's all.
Yeah. So like when you left, like what, like did your friends say anything? Your parents, you know, like your family? What was like their reaction?
Yeah. I think by the time I told my parents could see that I was quite depressed, and they knew that I was not doing so well. So they knew that, you know, I was going to do something about it, and that I was sort of hanging in by the thread. And same goes with my friends as well. I mean, you know, we would always, you know, when you're in the legal world, you kind of develop a community around just that, the legal world. And so you kind of sort of try to support each other. Because you know what you're going through, what, you know, each of you having to put up with, the long hours, the stress you get from clients, you know, and I think that helped. And obviously that sort of knowing that other people are going through something similar helps. But also it's also not that helpful when everyone's in a similarly difficult situation and you're all just, you know, like feeding into it too. And so you're all sort of escaping together, you know, you're all sort of partying together, and, you know, everyone's self-destructive. So it's, you know, like, I don't know how many people know, but like, you know, lawyers, doctors, you know, investment bankers don't live the healthiest lifestyles, you know, and we don't deal with stress all that well, despite all those jobs requiring a lot of stress and having to like carry that in our daily lives. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So when I did make the decision to leave, you know, my peers were understanding.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, so then what are you going to do next? You know?
So they immediately ask you,
Yeah,
like,
of
what's
course.
next?
Yeah,
And you're
what's
like,
next?
I just left. I don't know.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's the sort of, I guess the idea
Yeah.
or the expectation is that if you're going to leave
Yes,
this
yeah,
high-paying,
yeah.
secure job, then you're moving on to something that is going to be equally satisfying, if not better.
Yeah, like
So
you had a strategy
right.
what's next.
Yeah. So what's your sort of diagonal move, or like your lateral move? And I didn't actually really have that. Yeah.
I love that. I didn't either. But so when you left, like you didn't know what was next. You just knew you just had to leave.
You know, no, I mean, it would be a complete lie if I said I didn't know what was next. I mean, I thought that I wanted to get into legal tech. So I ended up investing in building my own legal tech startup, which was actually the firm's initiative to start with. And I actually moved to the US to get that off the ground. And it was bootstrapped, you know? So I was doing that for a few months, but then that's when COVID hit. So I had to fold that. And then once I decided, okay, well, I can't do this anymore, and I was in my bedroom at my parents' place, that's when I had to sort of go back to the drawing board and like figure out what I was going to do in light of everything that was happening in the world.
Wow, I totally forgot about that period of your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
That you're doing legal tech.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I definitely resonate with that expectation of like you need to have a strategy if you're leaving such a good paying job. And yeah, because it's like it's the same here, right? I mean, it's LA, OC, California. Like if you're in that corporate tech world, there's that expectation. You are making that lateral move or you're going up the ladder. And you know, like from my end, I didn't have anyone like around me in my vicinity like necessarily questioning like what are you gonna do. Partially also I'm kind of private, so I don't think a lot of people actually knew like I guess like the financial like comfort that Alex and I were in. I think people could have like guessed to a certain extent. But I was like very private, and you can see my lifestyle. It's not very lavish at all. I'm very bad at spending money on myself. I'm very good at spending for family and for friends, splurging and, you know, treating them. But for me, it's like, it's really hard to tell like that we were at that level of income. And so no one really knew what I was like really walking away from. They just knew I was really stressed. And so everyone was like very like on board. I'm like, yeah, you should get out. But that was it. Yeah, no one was really expecting of like, you know, like Riya must have like a plan B after this. I just really didn't. And my whole answer to them was like, I just need to be unplugged for a month. Like,
Okay.
that's all I needed.
Yeah. And you didn't have that expectation of yourself? Like you didn't sort of say to yourself, oh, I should have the next thing sort of lined up?
No. And I was very strict with myself mentally to not let my mind get to that place. I definitely felt that conflict of like, you know, angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, like battling it out of like, I knew that I shouldn't think about that because I was so incredibly burnt out that even if I started thinking about what's next, that would just put me in a deeper hole.
Yeah. Well, what you did was extremely wise and self-aware, because I think that, you know, you need to have a certain level of self-control to be able to know what it is that your body and your mind needs in that moment. But yeah, so going back to, you know, why, you know, and when we left our jobs, how did you feel when you know, decided to call it quits?
Yeah, that's a great question and a big question because that day that I left, leading up to it, I was like, okay, we're gonna party, we're gonna go get dinner. Me and Alex, we're gonna get dinner after I quit. But in actuality, that day, I was very emotional. I was grieving. That whole week I was really grieving, saying my goodbyes. I felt a lot of anger because it was my baby. Yeah, I don't know if we talked about this prior, but being part of like upper management and being responsible for helping build, part of the company, it's like you give your life to it. The best of you goes to that place of work or that job. Like Alex, my friends, my family, were getting like the butt end of me, like, which was really hard. Like when I quit, like it just hit me of like, why did it take me so long to come out? Or like, just a lot of like feelings of anger, not resentment towards the company. They're all lovely people, and like I left on good terms, like very grateful for them. But still, like that day was very emotional, and Alex, being the good husband that he is, was trying to check in on me and asking me like, how are you doing? And I legitimately told him, I can't answer that right now. Like, maybe not, don't ask me that for another couple of days, because I'm feeling way too much right now all at once. It's pretty overwhelming. Yeah. So that's...
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, and I can relate, because I think that, when you leave, for a lot of people, it can be this extremely celebratory moment, and for some people, they go out and celebrate immediately after. But, similar to you, I think, it like I needed to take a moment, because, I did also pour so much of myself into my work. And, I think as corporations do, they are really good at spotting, worker bees who are willing to sacrifice for their work, and, exercise a lot of work ethic, demonstrate ambition and drive, and, pour their souls into work. And I was definitely guilty, and I was one of those people. And I think while, it got the best of me, I was also so ready to give all of myself, which sort of inevitably led to the burnout as well. But, as you were saying, I think, in that moment, in my case, I think, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I think that, it was... I mean, it's cathartic, as well as, a mix of different emotions, looking around your office and feeling a bit sad, but also it's that bittersweet feeling, right?
For sure.
But I say gratitude because, having worked at that one firm for so long, it had given me so much. It gave me my first break. It, helped me sort of progress in my career so much. It gave me so many different opportunities. It molded me as a professional, as a person, and it, continued to sort of provide so much for me. Despite the fact that, it took away a lot as well.
Yeah.
As much as I was willing to give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, because it's like, I feel like, most people think, oh, like if you're burnt out and that's why you left, you probably left on really bad terms and whatnot. But I love that you said like gratitude, because you were there for a while. And I think that's really beautiful that you're able to still like bring out the good in that season, even though you were burnt out. And I definitely resonate with that. It's like, I didn't leave with any like bitter feelings towards them, like just a lot of gratitude that they gave me that opportunity to build, to be in that type of leadership. And it was just, it came to a point where the burnout, like you said, is just, it's not necessarily, a bad boss or, a bad like work environment or anything like that. It's just, there's also like different factors outside internally that builds up over time that actually leads to that burnout moment. And it's not a flippant decision of us quitting. It's like it was really like calculated over time of things just like stacking on top of each other, which I think is like a really good place to end this episode, because the next episode we're actually gonna go through those onion layers of like, what was it that actually led us to that moment, making that decision to leave.
Yeah. Because it's complex, it's multi-layered.
It is.
You know, there were so many different factors at play. But yes, I agree. We should leave that for the next episode. But hopefully everyone listening, watching, got something from this, and it's a great pleasure to be able to share in this way. And hopefully you'll join us for the next episode to learn a bit more.
Sounds good. Thank you. See you next episode.